I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to our public hearing. We are doing a presentation of the Batavia City School District Safety Plan for 21-22. Mr. Scott Bishoping, our interim superintendent, will make the presentation.
So this will be very brief, only because there really have not been any changes except to update the names and the areas that needed to be updated in the plan. So in terms of the operations of the plan, it is the same as what we had last year, which is not an issue. That's the way it should be if things are going okay. So I would entertain any questions or statements regarding the plan.
Anyone have any questions about the safety plan? Now, is this up on the website?
Yes, it's been up on the website since the day of the last board meeting.
Okay.
And available for comment as well there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you haven't had anyone question any of the...
We have not.
Okay, great. Okay, then I need a motion to close the public hearing, please.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Marucci. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Roll. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, you can call the roll, please, Brittany.
Mr. Marucci.
Yes.
Mr. Roll.
Yes.
Mrs. Lundbeck.
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman.
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict.
Yes. We are now in regular meeting, and the next item in the agenda is the public to be heard, which we have none. And so the next item is presentations. Superintendent update. Mr. Bishoping, please.
Sure. You received recently the protocol for our return, for students to return. That was put together after the state put out the updated guidance on masking as well as other areas. We're really very much in the same place we were last June in terms of expectations regarding distancing, masking. We do have some opportunity, in other words, in the area of chorus singing, playing musical instruments. We can be 6 feet apart, singing without masks. So that is different from last year. We had to be further distanced. And as well, we have some more opportunities for outside without any masks, without being distanced in the same way we were expected to be last year. So that there are some additional opportunities due to their findings about the virus and how that travels. Today we got notice from state DOH that there will need to be testing of staff that aren't vaccinated on a weekly basis. In other words, the messaging is that all need to be tested, but you can get out of testing if you are vaccinated. And so Tricia has been collecting or having people report to the nurses their vaccination status if they choose or want to opt out of testing. We'll be getting that together next week, seeing what happens or what the protocol is from the health department, and be ready to go with that the following week if indeed the health department wants us to. We have the rapid tests on hand and can get started with that. We would just need to know that there's a supply continuing so we can continue to do that locally. Again, we aren't going to ask people whether or not they're vaccinated. We're going to ask them to report their status to the nurse if they'd like to get out of the testing requirement. That's the way that it would look. As far as the elevator was, we expected that to be fully repaired by the start of school. They discovered there's an obstruction at the base that's getting in the way of the work in the elevator. As you might imagine, that's sort of tricky kind of work in terms of getting rid of that. We met today, Scott and I did, with the architect and with the construction manager, and they're working on what solutions they might find. Those are expensive solutions because it's not easy work to do. And so at the very least, we're talking about well over $30,000 to remove the obstruction. And it could wind up being far more than that, depending on what that is. We've asked them to do a video, have a camera, like you might find somebody running camera through a septic line or something like that, the same type of thing, so that they can go and take a look and see what they're actually dealing with, so we can get a better idea of what actually needs to happen, and so that it can be done most efficiently, most effectively, and with the least cost. We have our students that have chosen, or families that have chosen virtual learning for their students. Grades 6 through 12 are signed up with BCSD. They'll be having a program through that, through BCSD. We're working with the Livonia School District for our students in grades K through 5.
And can I ask, how many are we talking?
Probably total somewhere be around 35 to 40.
For all grade levels?
For all grade levels.
Okay.
That fluctuates because our counselors are working with families. We want to make sure we vet their decision to make sure that they fully understand what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, but we're not telling them no, we won't do that for them. We just want to make sure that they understand the process. We'll be working next week to get that set up, the K through 5 with the BCSD, or with the Livonia, with who their teacher's going to be, and having them interact, have them getting Chromebooks, because BCSD will provide the Chromebooks for our 6 through 12 students. Livonia will provide the Chromebooks for our K through 5 students, because they have to be on that system in order to be able to interact with their software, with their platform, that sort of thing. And so they'll be ready to go fully with those teachers by the start of the following week. Mike Brownlee and I met today with the cross-country coaches, because as you recall, you approved for them to go on a trip in October, and we want to make sure that they understand the ramifications, and talked about some requirements regarding what they would need to do. They're really talking to the organizers to see if if the trip is, they're going to be analyzing that and checking that out. But we wanted to make sure we had a conversation early enough in the process so that they could check in and see what are the measures that are best to take to be ready to do that if they're going to go forward with that trip. And that's all I have. Questions?
So the busing with the COVID protocols, that we're still able to place 2 students in each seat, so we don't have a busing issue?
Correct, other than we've had to make some adjustments on how we transport, because there's a national bus driver shortage, and so this year John Kennedy and Jackson students will be riding the same bus, and the high school and middle school students will be riding the same bus. And in the past, each school had their own buses. We just, we have limited drivers, or SDA has limited drivers, and it's the best option that we can do at this point in time.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been some districts that have had to adjust their start and end times based on the inability to have enough drivers to get students there at their original start and end times.
Okay.
John, do you have any?
The cost for the remote learning,
Yes.
what is that? What kind of cost are we looking at per student?
Per student, the cost for BCSD, for example, would be around $8,500
For the year?
for the year. The cost with Livonia is around, I haven't gotten a final number there. They were working through that, but it will be somewhere around $6,000 for the year. And those costs, we're using whether it's directly or indirectly, we're going to use the funds that we got from the federal government for catching up to pay for that.
The COVID funds that?
Yes.
Okay.
So that will not impact our regular budget. That's really what they're for. How do we get back to normal? And in this case, for health reasons, a lot of families are holding their kids out, and so it makes a lot of sense for us to use those funds to support those families that want to have their kids home because of those health reasons.
And all of the cleaning schedules have all stayed the same. It's still as important to all of us, you know, that as last year as it is this year about, you know, our care of our
Yeah.
buildings.
Yeah, I think we don't have that same hypervigilance about contact as we did before, because we realized that it isn't the carrier or the transmitter of the virus that we had worries about last year. However, we are certainly personal hygiene, student hygiene, hand washing, those and us making sure that we do clean things on a regular basis, of course, that hasn't changed. I think we're moving away from that hypervigilance about, you know, if somebody touches a doorknob, do we need to wipe it down right away? That has changed because of what we've learned. Last year we started sort of in a.
But I would assume a lot of
concerned
the
way.
teachers are still in those habits.
Oh, definitely. And I think a lot of those habits are healthy to continue
Oh,
on
sure.
regardless, well beyond this. And so that part we're certainly not going to, we're not going to try to curb that at all, of course.
Okay. All right, any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Bishop. The next item on the agenda is appointments. School Supervisor of Attendance, John Kennedy, Anna Worthington, and Batavia Middle School, Leandra DeRizio. I need a motion to accept these appointments. Motion made by Mrs. Lundy. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Rucci. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, you can call the vote.
Mrs. Lundy. Yes. Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Roll?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict?
Yes. Next item is agenda alterations, and you have the agenda alterations covered with the green paper. We have to add under consent items, appointments, and under contracts, we have a memorandum of agreement, and under reports is the search consultant information that I will be giving. I need a motion to accept the agenda alterations.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Riegel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bowman. Is there any questions? Seeing none, you can call the vote, please.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy. Yes. Mr. Roll?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict?
Yes. Next item is consent items. I need a motion for consent items, please. Motion made by Mr. Roll. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Lenve. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, you can call the vote.
Mr. Roll?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy.
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict?
Yes. Then, next item on the agenda is new business. District policy updates. You received in your packet all of the policy updates that we're considering. I need a motion to adopt.
You need a motion, or there's a first reading.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
actually requesting a motion
For
for
a
a
first
first reading
reading
and a
and-
waive of second.
And then waive the second reading.
Good.
Anyone
So
want-
moved.
Motion made by Mr. Riegel, second by Mr. Marucci. that okay?
Mhm.
Any discussion? Seeing none, you can call the vote.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Roll?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundey?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict?
Yes. Next is the 21-22 tax warrant and rate determination. I need a motion to accept this tax warrant and rate determination for next year.
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Lenve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bowman. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, you can call the vote.
Mrs. Lundey?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Roll?
Yes.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict?
Yes. The next item is reports, and that's where there was an agenda alteration, and that's was a request by me. I was in contact with Mr. McDonald, Kevin McDonald, our search consultant, and he wanted to let us know that we needed to organize a calendar for the search, and he would like to attend our board meeting on the 16th. We'll probably need about 45 minutes to an hour at that board meeting, and it was suggested that we bring him to the board meeting at like 7:15, so he could talk to us about what is on his agenda for the search. He would like to consider conducting the interviews outside of Batavia, and we're considering using the BOCES in Leroy for those interviews. And also in that discussion, we will be having a range of salary and benefits that we're willing to consider. So I just wanted to let you know that's his plan, and if I will send his email out to all of you, and because he's given some evenings, some dates for interviews, and we have to have a number of us available for these interviews. And we're also, Mr. Bishoping also said to me this evening that we should consider putting out some information to the staff and teachers about our process, and that we're going to be doing what it will be considered a confidential search, so that they know what's going on. Because I believe many have been asking. So I will invite Mr. McDonald to our meeting on the 16th to have the discussion about his, what he thinks is important. And we'll have some dates that he's given that you can all let me know what is convenient for you. And we'll start, that next process, the interview process, so that we can have a new superintendent, sorry, Mr. Bishoping, on board quickly.
That was the plan, so there's no need to apologize.
Okay. So that's my report. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Marucci. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Riegel. Is there any discussion?
You may want to share whether or not there's going to be any public or any decisions or any of that sort of thing after executive session. Just so that people can expect whether or not we're going to come back into public session with any business.
Okay. I don't really know if we're going to come back into or any business.
We don't anticipate it. I just wanted to make sure we were telling the public that we don't anticipate coming back into regular session with
Right.
any business after executive session.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
Sorry.
Not a problem. So I need a motion to go into executive session? Did we do that?
No.
Yeah, Marucci and Riegel. Want me to do roll call?
Any questions? Seeing none? You can call the vote.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundey? Yes. Mr. Roll?
Yes.
Mrs. Benedict?
Yes. We are now in executive